different ways to generate the money. So I started as a nutritionist, grew from that, and then grew to where we had at some point employees and all kinds of stuff. And from that, learned a whole lot of stuff, which I'm going to outline some of the 5 things that I learned, because I find a lot of people go into business almost with blinders on, because you don't know what you don't know. And then when you get into it, it's like, oh my goodness, what is so I'm going to let you ask the question before I jump too far into it. But I would just say this: it started from an opportunity. I'm summarizing. I knew that what I was doing wasn't going to work, and because I needed more than just myself being a nutritionist. So having that product line allowed for distribution and having other partners sell the product. And I was able to grow it successfully, whatever that means to people from the outside looking in. I would say that I grew it successfully from everybody's eye, from the outside looking in. So I'm going to leave it at that for right now, and then we'll dip into it. So if you have a question, I'll answer it. But I do have the 5 going into business or being in business. Oh, she's muted. You're muted, Gail.
I'm sorry. I thought I clicked it and didn't undo it. But anyway, I like how you reevaluated what you were doing at a certain point and decided, because what you're describing is direct service. And then you said that you were sending people other places to buy a product that if you decided that you would provide that product, then there's a new generating a new revenue. And I mean, I know you're going to get into more as you go, but then that helped you to create, opportunities for other people to come in to help you, so that everything didn't have to be on you. And a lot of entrepreneurs, you just a one person show. You do everything. You wear 50,000 hats, and 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 it's great that you saw early on a way to relieve yourself of some of the duties, but also to generate more income. So you just found a win-win all the way around. So I thought that was pretty genius. So do you still, as we move along, do you still do that about every couple of months or every couple of years? You kind of look at what's happening in your growth, I guess, in your revenue, and then say, well, maybe we should do this and we should do that. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, I'll just say for myself, I just try to look at if there's any potential to grow, or maybe something I'm doing is not working, I need to take that away. So, but how much time should pass before you start to reevaluate what you're doing?
You got to reevaluate all the time.
Okay.
Like all the time, because sometimes things are being shifted around unbeknownst to you. So, right, like, so COVID came in, and then you're like, I got to reevaluate. So there's always something. There's never a point of rest where you're just without evaluation. I would tell you, I'm probably evaluating something every morning, because I'm like, here's the thing I will start with is I kind of, this is the topic of evaluation before a person gets into business and then when they're in business. But the first thing I would say to someone to ask themselves what to evaluate first is what they really want for their life, because that will dictate if it even makes sense for you to go into this particular business with the business model or the structure. And so a lot of people, they are passionate about the thing, the baking the pies or the whatever the product is or the service. They're passionate about that. But a lot of times I find people don't think about how they want their life to live or how they want their life to look. And if you start with what is the vision that I have for my life, like what do I want to do every day and how do I want that to look, that will actually help you to figure out if what you're doing makes sense and how you're doing it. And sometimes you don't know that initially But I would say this is a lot of people go into business because they they want no boss, right? So they're like, I don't want a boss. I don't want to have to, be on the clock and clock in. And then I would also say that all of a sudden you started a business and you created a job for yourself. You have a business, you're the boss, you're the employee, you're the everything, right? What you said. It's like you create this thing and now you don't have a boss, because when you had a job, you go and you come. Now you have your own business, you don't go, or you just always in it. It's just you. So you have to look at, is that okay? Like, do you want to leave your job where they pay you and you have a consistent check, to going to inconsistencies and doing all the things? Because when you first start a business, you really are doing all the things. You're figuring it out. So you don't generally, you're just in it. So is that okay for you? And how long is that okay? Because if your vision is freedom and time freedom and all of those things, but you've created a business that's going to put chains on you, maybe that might not work. So that's a point where I would say evaluate what you want your life to look. So when I was starting to do the business, and there was a point where I realized, oh, okay, if I'm doing this, then this is making me have to always get customers, or it was just things I had to tweak along the way. And I had to ask myself, how is this working and how can I have this to work differently so that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve in my life overall? So that's one thing, is evaluating just how you want your life to look, and just see if that is even possible. And that whole thing of time freedom, right? So people want no boss, and then they want time freedom. And that is what you don't get a lot of times when you're starting a business. You do not have any time. Your time is yours to work on your business, and you don't have time for anything else. And so that is suffocating for some.
Yes.
And then some people, yeah. And then they started because they have a passion for whatever it is. They're like, I have this passion for helping people or this product because I know it works. And so you started with passion, but your passion is not for business. Your passion is for maybe distribution of this item. But you have to have I believe, a passion for not just the product, but the business. Because you actually have to, unless you have, if you're the creator of it, you you have to have a passion for seeing it through, and to get the product to market. Like MJ has beard oil, to get it out there, you have to have some idea of marketing and business. You have to. So you have to almost decide if you will like that. Evaluate if that's something that you're okay with being a part of. Because I know people, like, if they're like a baker, they like baking pies. They're passionate about baking pies, not marketing and social media and analytics. They like pies. So then they realize, oh my gosh, I created this bakery and now I'm like a human resource person and all of these things. And the passion of what they like, they don't even get to do it. It's like stressful because they're like, I got to put these pies in the oven. Then I got to get these deliveries out. It's just all this stuff. So I would say evaluate what you want your life to look, or how you want to wake up in the morning, and see if that's possible with what you are creating. So that's the point
Right.
of evaluation. Yeah.
Right. I agree with you 100%, because I say that a lot with this podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
love doing the podcast, but once I realized that I had to become a business person, it took away the joy. It was like, you know,
Yeah.
taking out the joy. And so if you want to remain in the business, then you have to figure out how to balance it out. And it does take a whole lot of your time. And that
It
time
does.
freedom thing, I have a problem with it almost every day. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so new at this, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll figure it out. And so far it's coming together. And it helps me to figure out what to do next, or how to get over particular hurdles when I speak with people like you or other people in business to help me figure it out. So
Yeah.
panel, you guys want to jump in at any point?
I have a well, I kind of have a statement and a question.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to ask you something else in regards to Shred 10, but
Okay.
um, when you guys speak about passion, my reasoning for I always liked being an entrepreneur. I did hair for 20 years. I did travel, a lot of that. But I also have a passion for wanting to retire kind of early, but and then but I knew I needed something to supplement my income. So instead
Yeah.
of me going to work for someone else, I decided I wanted to create a business that I knew I could possibly that I had interest in. Plus, I knew that it was something that I was already doing. You know,
Hmm.
I love oils. So I
Yep.
decided to do a men's oil. My first choice was actually a women's product that I was looking at, and I still want to do that. But my passion comes in not the type of business that I have, but the
Hmm.
actual fact that I'm owning my own business and I don't have to answer to the boss. And what it is, it's a challenge for me to be able to grow this business because I'm doing it on my own efforts. So I'm
Hmm.
competing with myself as to say, hey, if this fails, it's because of you. And I hate failing. So I have to,
Hmm.
and you're right about marketing. I may not know the marketing end, but there are people that know the marketing end. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
find the revenue to pay those people to do my marketing,
Yeah.
which is what I've done already. So you
To.
still have to be smart about it.
Hmm.
And it is frustrating. It does take the joy out of it for the minute, but then you go back and you realize, okay, what was your reasoning for doing this? So I have to
Yes.
stand on why I started this so that I won't lose the joy of the fact that, hey, I'm doing this business because number one, it's going to supplement my income for retirement. And number two, it's challenging me to create something and make it successful because sometimes you want you want those personal wins. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And for
Yes.
me, it's really personal. It's those personal wins that I want. And I want to be able to be proud of myself that, hey, I created this business and I made it a success. I may not be on the level of the other companies, but when you start getting those sales and the
Yes.
sales be consistent, you put the right work into it or you put the work into it in order to make it successful. So that's where my passion comes in. The fact that
It's
I'm doing something that I can actually make very successful and it's helping people as well.
when you mentioned marketing, and I would say that in having a business, is that something that has to be mastered, but it's always changing. And so I would say to anyone in a business, that's something you have to know, and what works for the your industry, because there's so many different avenues and opportunities, and they're changing, because once upon a time there was no social media, and now that is the thing, and you have to figure that out. So any business owner or budding business owner, entrepreneur, you I think you have to know how you're going to get your product or service out, because there's so many great ideas all the time that are could be viable, and there's some not so great ideas that are making tons of money because they have the understanding of the marketing. And so a lot of times people create something because they think it will work, and maybe it will, but they haven't created that strategy to make sure that it gets out. And that's something that I know that people do. And I would say spend some time on mastering marketing. And not everything works for everything, right? So that's just something that is important. I know for me and my company, when I started, one of our number one marketing tools, and it still is, was speaking. So when I was we on my team would do presentations and educational opportunities, then we did well with conversion in that way. So that's something else that just people just have to know what works for them. And then that used to work because we used to do face-to-face, and then COVID happened. So we had to shift that way. So just, I would say that people have to master their marketing. The other thing that this is something that I feel like it's all important, but I do feel like this. So a person starts a business and they have a passion. And so a business has to make revenue. It has to, whatever that is. And I know it has to make not only revenue, but because there's businesses that make revenue, but they don't make a profit. And
Right.
so that's important. It's like, and it's is your business making money, or is it draining your money, or is it even making enough to sustain you? Those are important. And then there's cycles. Nothing is forever. So I feel like when a person starts a business, let's say a person starts a business, and the first year it's amazing. Like everybody wants the product. That doesn't mean the second year is going to be amazing. And just because the first year isn't amazing doesn't mean the second year won't be amazing. But folks have to get in it with consistency and long haul behavior. You have to know though when to hold them and when to fold them, because there's sometimes you're passionate about something and you believe that it'll work, but no one else is. The customers are not coming. And the question is, well, when do you stop? Because most businesses fail. And so there's some that make it, but most of them fail. So what I find is that and I'm speaking about for me, it took me 3 years to make money. That doesn't sound exciting. Like it took me 3 years, like to wait 3 years. I generated revenue. So I was able to, the first year I was just putting money in. The second year I was making some money, but I was still putting money in. And the third year that the business was paying for its own self. So I didn't have to put any of my money in, but it took a while for me to actually make money from it, where I could actually like pay for stuff that outside of the business. And that takes a while. So I would say I would want to say, go in with knowing, like, look at where you are. We talk about evaluation, like where are you after 3 years? And can you even sustain yourself that long if it doesn't hit? And then let's say you get to 3 years Gail, you were saying about evaluation. Then there's a point of 5 years. Like, where are you in 5 years? Is this viable? Because the world is changing. Can you go another 5 years? Or where are you? You get to 7 years, and then think however things were at 7 years is not how they were when you started. So then sometimes at 7 years, you may start to decline. It's like that. You have this uptick, everybody's buying what you're having, and then your product is not, there's something that comes and then you're declining. And there's this ebb and this flow. And you have to be able to, I feel like this, like it's like riding a mechanical bull. And sometimes you were on that mechanical bull and you're stable, and sometimes it throws you off. And I feel like that with business. There's always something going on, and you have to have the resiliency to withstand that. I've had all kinds of problems come up. We had a fish oil, and so we had we had partners in like Las Vegas. So I'm in California. So we sent the product to our distributors in the other states. And then it was a liquid, and it all went rancid, all of it. So it was all over the place, like Vegas. It was just in Vegas, rancid. So customers were coming into the person that was selling it. So we were the main seller, and we wholesaled it, and it was just a chaos. And I just remember being so sad, because it just seemed like such a disaster. And I lost a lot of money, and it was just like such a disaster. And I would just say, so many things can happen. So many things can happen, but you have to be resilient to get back up from that. But actually, going back to my point about cycles, evaluating, knowing that it's going to take a while, and then look at where you are 3 years. Because I would say, if after 3 years, sometimes after a year, that your idea is good or not, or but after 3 years, that's when you can say, okay, look, I've been doing this for 3 years, and this is just not working. You have to look at, is this even going to work, or do I just need to tweak it, or what have you? But the point is, you have to make money. That's the only way that's business. If you do not make money, then it ain't working.
Then it's a
And it
hobby.
doesn't have to be this, then it's a hobby. And what people want financially is very what they want, right? So I could tell you this, that I changed my desires along the way, because I got to a point where I quote unquote achieved what I thought I wanted. And then I just realized that's not what I wanted. So then I had to reevaluate and readjust and all of those things. So it's always, it's just a lot, but it's fun though. It's fun. Let me answer any questions, because I could continue to share some nuggets and things that I've found along the way, but I want to see if there's questions that you all have.
Okay. Well, beginning, I know we've touched on some of the things that you were planning to talk about anyway,
Yeah.
but to take us through the 5 things that we should know
Okay.
starting the business, and well, before starting and as we go along in business, because those
Okay.
are the things that will help sustain us.
So I'll take you through. So I did touch on them, but I'll say evaluation. So I'm
Okay.
summarizing. So evaluation is number one. You have to look at what your end goal is for yourself if you know it, right? Evaluate how you want to wake up in the morning. Like, do you want to wake up on an alarm clock, or do you want to be able to how do you want your life to look? That will help you figure out that business of yours. Because is the business going to own you, or do you own it? And I would tell you, I've had it both ways. And the way that when the business owned me, I didn't like that way, because I had chains. I couldn't go. I couldn't travel. I was stuck. I didn't like that. But I had to do that to realize I don't like that. So evaluation. The number 2 is preparation. Because when you're in business, depending on if you're doing it part-time to make it full-time, or you are working, you have to prepare. So before I started my business, I knew, so a year before, I only lived on half of my income. So I had a job. I'm 45, going to be 46. And I left my regular job at 27. And before I did that, I spent a year just saving. So I lived on half of my income so that when I left, I had enough of it to sustain myself for a year. Plus, I got certified to be a substitute teacher, because that was like a plan B, and I got a real estate license. Like, I had these plans, like, okay, if this didn't work, because I wanted to be prepared for the unknown, and I know I had to pay my bills because I had a mortgage. So preparation is key in what you're doing, and mental preparation is key. Because here's the deal: are you a resilient person? Like, are you the type of a person that can take a licking and keep on ticking? Is that what they say? Like, are you that person, or are you, and this is no judgment, it just is, like, some people just, things stress them out. Like, and you got to figure out what is your point. Like, along the way of my business, I'm just being transparent. I went through a bankruptcy. I went through all kinds of stuff. And that's real, but I didn't like it. But I realized I survived it, and it made me tougher, like so tougher. So tougher, is that a word? Tougher? Stronger. That's what it is. So how mentally prepared are you? How resilient are you? Number 3, I would tell you I wouldn't be as resilient if number 3 weren't in place. And number 3 is everybody around me is an entrepreneur. My mama, at the time, my then mate, my friends. Basically, I was insulated by people, mentors telling me how it goes and seeing their journeys. And I would tell anybody that if you're starting a business, get with someone who is doing it at a greater level than you, so they can help you, because it gets really
Right.
rough. And then also, if you're around people that work every day, like they get up and go to work every day, and then you're trying to do this business, them going to work every day might start to sway you back to going to work every day, because they're like, they have a regular paycheck. There's something about this, a thing, when you have a regular paycheck and then you don't, that's resiliency right there. Like, that takes mental preparation. When you are very unsure of what's coming, that's a thing. And I learned at some point I was able to predict the revenue. So that was okay, because I got it to cycles where I was like, okay, I know it's coming in. But I would say this, when you, about preparation, I'm going back to preparation because I want to make this a point. When your business is doing well, best you save your money. When it's doing well, don't just be like, oh, it's going well, it's going to go well forever. No, put your money to a side, because if it happens and there's a down cycle, because that's life, and these things are not flowing as well, you put your money away and you prepared so that you can weather the storm, because it's really about weathering the storm. So going back to the environment, you want to just, if you can, have other people in your circle that will do that. The other thing about business, so my business is all that I have. So there are people that have businesses that are side hustles, right? So you have a business, you have a job, a regular income, and then you have a side hustle business. That's okay. And a lot of people that have the side hustle business, like, oh my gosh, I want to go full time with this. I would love to do this full time. And so I do my business full time. And it ain't always pretty, as I mentioned to you, because sometimes I'm like, I want to make a purchase, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Like, maybe I should make that purchase. So it's a thing. It's a thing. But having that environment of people that are, doing it too, that helps. Number 4 is, I talked about the cycles. Trust and believe everything isn't always going to be good and everything isn't always going to be bad. It's just not. So, but when it's bad, or it's not going good, I hope you saved when it was going good. And don't think that it's all, like I said, it's not always going to go up, 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 up. Like, I've had years in the business where my revenue was just great, year after year, year after year. Like for 4 years, it was just good, 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 good. And then it started to level off. And then it started to drop a little bit. And, it's just, there's ebbs and flows and cycles. And it's like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, if you get that far, because a lot of people don't get that far. So if you get that far, that's a good thing. And when I say too about, I want to make this clear about, like my mom has a business. She has vending machines, and she doesn't make, like, she has a business. She's a solopreneur in that business. And it doesn't make all the money in the world. It's still a business and it does make money, and she is able to pay bills with it, but it's not like it works for her. So it doesn't matter if your business is big or small, because people judge themselves maybe on the revenue. Like, I did that. So my thing was, I need to make 6 figures with my business. I need to make this amount with my business, because the society, or that was what it was like, you're not successful if you don't do X amount. And I was fixated on that. Like, and then when I got to that X amount, it didn't make my life no better. It was a personal achievement. It's like I rang the bell, but then I'm like, oh, you know how you just like, is this all there is? Right? It's the journey of getting there. But once I got to wherever I got to, I realized I don't even need all of what I thought I needed. Because I had employees at a warehouse and all of that. And that's when I got to the point where I'm like, because sometimes for me, I was working to pay them too. Like, I was in other words, I didn't have to have as much revenue if I didn't have as many bills. Does that make sense? So I knew I could downsize my work, downsize my bills, and have more time, more peace of mind, because I didn't have so many things to manage. And that took me 10 years to know that, to understand. So I scaled my business back so that I could be better. And I like it because I have more time now, like legitimately, like for real. So, and then I said the cycles. And then the number 5 was that we talked about the marketing. You got to master the marketing. That, or you find somebody who is a master of marketing, but you're the one driving the vision. So you have to be able to articulate that vision, because sometimes they don't have your vision and they're trying to do something that's not your path. So you have to understand who your end user is for whatever it is, and understand the options of how to get it to them. And then again, back to business, is consistency, meaning maybe somebody bought something for you in January, but are they gonna buy from you in February and March and April? Like business has to generate money like every single month. And then it needs to generate money. So those are the 5: evaluation, preparation, creating your environment, understanding the cycles, and the mastering of marketing. I tried to kind of summarize it into those things, but I love figuring out the business side. And that's probably why I have succeeded, whatever that means to people, whatever success means different things to different people. But I will tell you, I have succeeded because I'm still doing it. That's like, I failed, I got up, I failed, I got up. But I would say I succeeded not because of the amount of revenue, but because of the fact that I'm still doing it.
Right.
So,
and you determine, you wrote the definition of what success should be for you because of what you wanted in your life, how you wanted your life to be every day. And that's really important. So that is something that that I have to decide as far as being super busy and believing that you have to do all of these things to make your business, quote unquote, a success, and then figure out how to look at your life and see, is this a life that I want? Would I have to continue to do all of these things every day in order for this business to do as well as it is? But then what about me? It's kind of like, it's two things really. What about me? What about my life? And so
I think too, it's creating systems. I always look for I always look for this. How is it possible to automate? What is automatable in my business? What can I use technology for to alleviate some of my time? And I believe there is something in every business that is automatable. And so that's something I would always tell people to look at. What can they do to do that, to free up the time to do the things that they want more time to do? And then people do say, because that's the word on the street, you have to work hard and never sleep to be successful. And I heard, and I'm gonna challenge that. I guess that's for some people, but my question always was, how can I be successful and not do all that? That was my question, because nobody asked that question. Everybody's like, you gotta work hard, you gotta work 24 hours a day, and that's what people do. And my question was, well, how can I not do that? Is it possible? And when you ask a question, certain things start to show up. And I think I had the wherewithal, because sometimes you got to get rid of some things, right? So I had the wherewithal to know, I take naps every day. I really do. I work about 4 hours a day. Sometimes I work longer, but I probably work about 4 hours a day at this point, because I have systems. And let me just say this, everything is not, it's always an ebb and a flow. So just know that, no matter what you hear me tell you and how it looks to you, I'm still having to do stuff. But in those 4 hours, I try to maximize, and I'm not always on point. I don't always, I'm like human. I don't always want to do something. Sometimes my time management is off. It's just the reality. But in those 4 hours, I'm looking at what is the revenue generators. What in those 4 hours can I do to move this forward, or the time that I'm spending doing it? What's the most bang for my buck? So I try to look at that every day. And I do the things I don't want to do first. I do. I try, because there's some stuff I just do not want to do. I just really don't. I just don't want to do it. But I try to do those first. Yeah, I try to do those things first. But I think that I would say that, and it depends on your business model. There are different business models, and you have to figure out if that is conducive to you. Summarizing, see what you can automate in the business. Yeah.
Right. I think that's genius. Okay, go ahead, Clarence.
Robin, one of the things that I was trying to do, and I'm glad you actually did it, I was looking for the 5 things that you concentrated on.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to compare that with the conversations that I've had with each of my children about the businesses that they
Mm-hmm.
ultimately went in.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I told all of them was whatever you do, make sure it's something that you like to
Yeah.
do.
Right. Right.
Because if you don't like it, and then it becomes a struggle, it becomes uh, you create difficulty by the
Mm-hmm.
mere fact that you don't like what you're doing. But
Right.
and I told them don't get particularly lost in the revenue side of it. I said if you develop your business properly, the revenue will come
Mm-hmm.
for you. One of my daughters is a fashion designer,
Mm-hmm.
and my son, uh, he worked. He went to school for network marketing. I mean, for computer network design. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what he does. But then he cleans gym shoes,
Hmm.
and I was shocked when he sat down and showed me. He
Mm-hmm.
says, Dad, people that, and he was one of those, he was a Michael Jordan nut when it came to gym shoes. He
Mm-hmm.
probably got 100 pair of gym shoes,
Mm-hmm.
but he was single. So he had nothing to spend his money on to go buy 3 or 4 $100 pair of gym shoes. But he explained to me that the people that spend this kind of money, they want to keep their shoes clean, and a lot of them don't know how to do it.
Huh.
So he does that, and he generates a nice income from
Oh,
cleaning other people's gym
gee,
shoes.
that's awesome. That
So
is awesome.
he went and got him I told him, I said, if you're going to make it a business, I said, then go get an LLC.
Mm-hmm.
I says, and set it up so
Mm-hmm.
that you're set properly. I says, because the one thing you don't want to do is get in trouble with Uncle Sam.
Right. I
Yeah.
yes, I want to say this, Tara, if I can interrupt you, even having like my business is set up as a corporation, and I'm not going to go into that a whole lot, but I would just tell you that that is a very important move that allowed me to maneuver in a different way if other than if I were a sole proprietor on paper.
Mhm.
Having a corporation really allows me to do a lot of things because also this is important for people. If you are classified as self-employed and you're trying to buy anything, they're going to
Mm.
ask you for a lot of documentation. But if you have a corporation and you can be an employee of your corporation, then the paperwork and the red tape is less when you can do that way.
Yeah.
It just that's I want to say that.
Well, because he was just starting
Hmm.
is why I made that suggestion.
Yeah.
Because prior, when I was a few years younger than I am now, I started my own security business, and the attorney that I hired,
Hmm.
he designed and he made me a corporation
Yeah.
because he said the one thing, if you are a corporation, then you cut down your liability.
You
Uh,
surely do. You surely do.
as far as I'm concerned, he says this is how you protect your assets like your home
Hmm.
and things of that nature. But all four of my all four of my 5 have their own small businesses,
Good.
and they're they like what they do.
Do they do them all full time? All of
No,
them? Or they're
no,
okay. Got it.
yeah, they're
I would
all part time.
I would say this about Black folk, and I'm sure that not everybody listening is a Black folk, but we owe it to ourselves to figure out how we create wealth for the generation that is under us, because a lot of us, anybody didn't pass anything down to us 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And so God bless the child that has his own. And for us to know that there's nothing wrong with working for someone else, because that's what most people do. But to have something of your own, that even if it's a side hustle business that you can, let me say this too about a side hustle business. If it's a side hustle business and it ain't your main business, then use that side hustle business to generate income to create something else. Be it if you're going to use that income to invest, buy real estate, or whatever the case may be, but think about long-term creation for yourself and your family, because a lot of times we're just trying to make it. And that ain't gonna make it, because that's our mentality. Make it. We just gotta make it.
Yeah.
And so we owe it to ourselves to not just make it. So that's my.
Well, I would say that three out of the 4 that have their small businesses, they are strongly against continuing to work for someone else.
Okay.
They have that mindset, but they haven't developed their business. And I push them on, don't just quit your job.
Please don't.
And you're not prepared.
Right.
Said,
prepared.
Always head in that direction, but make sure that if you decide to take that step, you have prepared yourself. And that was one of the steps that you mentioned, was preparation.
And I love this. This is a random tip. This is for people that are in a relationship. So if one person is an entrepreneur, I say one person need a job. That's how I feel. Like somebody, one of y'all, one of y'all. Because I was in a relationship where we're both entrepreneurs. So that's interesting. That's interesting. And I made it, but it was like, woo. But if I had to tell somebody, I would say one person have a job and one person be the entrepreneur. If I had to give some advice on that, because a dual entrepreneur household is like, that's crazy. It works. It can work, but it's just like, ooh, this is crazy. And then, yeah, so that's the thing. But if you're solo, and I'm solo now, so that's even more exciting, because I'm like, it's all on me. Like, so that actually excites me. I'm like, can I do this like all on my own? Like, that's exciting. Yeah, super exciting. Yeah, so I know we're gonna come to a close because I'm looking at the time and I want to be respectful for y'all's time. And then I gotta go make dinner too. So because I don't have it automated, kind of. Maybe I do. I do have it automated in a sense, because my child is chopping up the garlic and the onions. So while I'm doing this, so it is automated, because I'm like, girl, you gotta do this while I'm doing this. But when she's done with that, I gotta go do the beans and rice and all the stuff that we're gonna have. So
I do have a nutritional question for you.
So here's the deal, MJ. Because that could take us on a whole nother tangent, and you can you can ask it, but you can call me and we can talk nutrition. We can, like, I'll answer it for you, but that could take us on a whole nother tangent. I would love to talk with you. Yeah, we could set up a Zoom and talk, but you can ask. Go ahead and ask the question.
It's just one quick question. How is it that it's very difficult to lose weight when you don't eat fast food, and you don't eat, that was a question my daughter had, and we cook every night. We rarely go out or send out for food.
I can answer that. So people always say to me, I can't lose weight and I do everything right. And I would tell them, no, you don't do everything, because the weight is still there. So there's something that is not being done. And so what I do when I work with people with their nutrition, we have to look at does it become a hormonal thing at some point? Because sometimes it does, right? And people don't know that. So there's just a point where if you're doing everything right and your food is balanced, and that's another thing, because sometimes we're taking on more carbohydrates than our body can manage, meaning that we only can, what's not used as energy will be stored as fat. And sometimes we're eating something that looks very, very healthy. It's like, what? I'm just eating so healthy, but the body is not using it. So healthy or not healthy is the body's not using it and it'll store it somewhere. So that's a thing about balance. So when you say it's a quick question, it's kind of not, but I'm gonna tell you that it can be a thing of balance of what you're eating, when you're eating, hormonal thing, challenges, and then whether or not you exercise. Because the older we get, I don't know how old your daughter is, but I know this, food, the primary driver is nutrition, but the other thing to take us over to the next level, and I'm not an exercise expert at all, but if there is a point that you're doing right nutritionally, but you don't have that exercise component, you gotta do all of that. And then all of those things, let's say all of those things are they're congruent, then I would say it's a hormonal thing. Because as women, we have thyroid, we have estrogen and progesterone and testosterone that's not always balanced up, and it creates imbalance. And then people are stressed, and there's an adrenal system in our bodies. And if that's off kilter, then your body's not going to do what it needs to do. So that is a part of it too. So that's the short answer to that. Hopefully short. Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can call me
I know
MJ.
I just know mine is hormonal because I
Yeah,
eat
so
once a day.
Yeah. And so maybe
It's true.
once a day, because this is the thing too, because even once a day, like there's fasting and there's intermittent fasting, and there's different things. The thing is what works for your body. Because like maybe eating once a day, your body doesn't work for your body, right? Maybe your body needs multiple eats throughout the day. Like sometimes the bodies need to eat more, but the mind doesn't want to eat more. It's like, I only want to eat once a day. But the body's like, but I'm going to store this fat if you don't. So it just depends. And it's so tricky, so nuanced. It is.
Okay. So Clarence, you have any questions before we go? We still have at least 5 good minutes.
We have 5 good minutes. Yes.
Well, she covered the things that I was interested in, and part of it I had kind of touched on it, but she put a bow on it for me because I was always interested in entrepreneurship, even though when I was younger, I just dipped and dabbed into various types of businesses, multi-level marketing businesses and things of that nature. But I always found myself veering off and, I'm going to go have some fun. And now I'm a retired old man now, but I can look at my kids and I see that they kind of watched and listened to what I was saying.
Yeah.
And now they're in their 30s and mid 40s, and they really understand the concept of entrepreneurship and wanting to own their own business. And the fact that they went out and they've started a small business on something that they like. And they're relatively successful at it. But the other part that you mentioned too is if you're in a relationship, all of my daughters are married, well, except one. But they have husbands. In fact, my youngest daughter, her husband owns a business himself. But they all have jobs, so they have income coming in. And they even work, but they still are developing their business, and their spouses support them in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that kind of fit right into what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. And so I would say this because I know we're coming to a close and people have questions about nutrition because they know I'm a nutritionist. So I would say to anybody that's listening, y'all can messenger me, DM, however they say it. You can send me a private message if you have some questions. I welcome the opportunity to talk to people because sometimes it's just a question and I can just answer it, and then that's good enough. But I always, to whomever I'm talking to, I will give them some direction as to some of the things that I know that work nutritionally. So that's one thing. And then on the business side, if Cooper has a question about that, also you can messenger me through Facebook, and I will answer that question because
Okay.
I
So
actually go ahead.
how can they reach out to you
Exactly.
exactly?
So if we're on Facebook, right? I think so. Robin Allen, and if you type in Robin Allen Necessary Nutrition, I'll come up because Robin Allen is a common name, so other people have it, but my business is Necessary Nutrition, so that will find me, and you can friend me because I think if you don't friend me and you try to leave me a message, it'll try to not let you. So I'm friendly, so I'm friendable, so you can friend me, and then the other way is you can go to our website, or if you Google Necessary Nutrition, will come up on Google.
Yeah, it will.
It will come up. So we're there. I found a glitch on my website just a couple days ago. Y'all didn't ask me that, but those are things that happen in business. Like you think something's up, and then you look, and it's like, what happened? Like, where'd it go? But that's tis me. And I love talking about business because most of the time people want to talk about nutrition. They do, because that's everybody's life, right? And so talking about nutrition is fun to me because it's a life thing. It's a personal development thing, right? That's how I got into nutrition because I was like, how can I be better for me? Hi, mama. And my daughter, so she's like, look, she's done with the onions and the garlic, so she's like, oh. But I think that I don't even know what I was saying. I like business. I like nutrition. Y'all can ask me questions about it.
Are you on IG?
Okay.
Instagram?
I'm on IG, and I'll give you my IG handle, but I'm not, what would I say? I'm not too active on IG. So, but my handle is, do I just say it? It's at Nessie Nutri, NESSYNUTRI. So Nessie Nutri, N is in Nancy, E, S is in Sam, S is in Sam, Y, N is in Nancy, UTRI. So we are on IG, but we're not rocking IG. Yeah, we're not rocking IG. But I think that social media is just it's a whole animal. And my social media strategy, well, I don't got time to tell you about it.
Well, if you have a few minutes, if you can spare it.
No, I don't. Because my daughter's yo, we gotta cook this food right here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're hungry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Robin. Thank you, Clarence and MJ, and thanks to the viewers. And we will see you next week. And I thank God for His grace and mercy. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your neighbor. And you can reach out to the show at Shy Panther and Friends Show #1 @gmail.com. And that's it for us tonight.
Thank you.
You.